All right, so we are doing our Limitless weekly call, and we have a guest speaker on right now, Mr. Dale Halaway. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
And Dale is, just so you know, he's the perfect blend between spirituality and practicality. I've had the pleasure of taking several of Dale's seminars um, in Las Vegas, and I've read his book, Being Called to Change. He is a what I would call a spiritual advisor slash life coach. He is has extremely valuable information. So I invited him to come on the call, not only kind of go over Limitless with us, but also give us some of his expert advice, as we could all definitely use it right now. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive right in. Dale, as far as Limitless goes and having a morning routine, um, I kind of wanted to go over that information with you. And you've seen the Limitless chart and kind of, what it does. As far as giving advice to us and how we can maximize using Limitless, wanted to pick your brain on that and just ask you a few questions.
Absolutely.
Okay, sweet. Um, So as far as Limitless goes, I have the chart right here. You guys can see it. It's something you download. You're basically tracking your habits every morning and building a morning routine and holding yourself accountable. And it's really about learning, discipline more or less. So, Del, can you kind of explain why habits rule us and a little bit about habits in general?
Yeah, sure. Well, habits are a real interesting phenomena because once a habit is formed, it kind of gets locked in uh, deep within our subconscious, or at least it gets locked in deep within the subconscious, and then over time, as you practice that habit, whether you're aware of it or not, quite frankly, or whatever the habit is. The habit could be a incredibly positive, successful oriented habit, and then again, it could also be an incredibly negative, destructive habit, or at the very least, a habit that's designed to limit us or hold us back in our life. So once that habit gets created, and there's a variety of different ways in how it gets created, and we can talk about that in a minute if you want. But once that happens, then it drops into the subconscious body of that individual or the subconscious self. Now, the subconscious is very much like a very powerful computer. Some are aware that they have one. Some are not even aware, if you can imagine, that they even have one. And those who are aware that they have one, if you were to ask them to write an essay on their subconscious, like I've often done in some of my seminars over the years, I'll ask them just to write a paragraph or two or three, and for those that can write a whole page or two, have at it. I'll give them maybe 5 to 7 minutes. And if I'm in front of 100 people, it's always so interesting to note that, quite frankly, only about 10 of them can actually get a whole page written down on what the subconscious is, how it works, its own power level, how do you access it, how do you get it working for you on your behalf, especially when it comes to choosing to have your life be moving forward in whatever area that you would like it to move forward in. The other 90%, the majority of them, quite frankly, can only get one or two lines on the paper. It's always been such an interesting kind of, if you will, test or exercise that I've done probably hundreds of times over the years for all different types of groups and companies that I've supported and helping go to the next level of their evolution, or individuals as in the public sector, or couples, or someone's parental style, or with their kids, and so on and so forth. So it's always been interesting, and part of what I mean by that, it's equally revealing because it lets us know that, quite frankly, just a much larger group of people either don't even know it exists, and if you don't know it exists, then you probably don't know how it works. And if you don't know how it works, then you're probably going to be at the influence of your subconscious, and more specifically, your previous programming. The programming ties right into your question that you're asking me about right now, is habits. So a program is equivalent to a habit. Now, again, as I said, a habit can be limiting, as in very self-limiting, or a habit can be unlimiting, as in a habit that's designed to really empower you to accomplish or to experience whatever it is that your soul or your heart has been prompting you to accomplish and experience in your life, and quite frankly, any part of your life. So once that habit's been formed, that habit, like a program in your computer, it starts to run your life. So, one of the things that, in fact, I've dedicated a whole chapter in my book, Being Called to Change, which I call Daily Practices. And obviously, you know this really well now, Justin. And those practices are designed to help you form new habits. Now, when you're in that process of forming new habits, or specifically the type of habits that you really want to create that are designed to empower you, they're designed to elevate you, they're designed to cause you to move forward or deeper in your love relationships, or deeper in the relationships and friendships that you really want to move forward in, or maybe it's in your business or your career, maybe you're a career professional, or quite frankly, I also see this play out a lot in people's personal economies, like their financial life. People who have more limiting oriented habits deep within their subconscious, you can be assured they end up struggling financially. And even for those who start making a lot of money, if you've got these types of habits inside of you subconsciously, these types of habits have the potential to sabotage the financial success that perhaps that individual has enjoyed over a short period of time. By the same token, if those habits are in your subconscious that are designed to support you in the way that we're talking about here now, where all of a sudden they can help you to start making actually more money, and not only making more money, but they can help you to sustain that amount of money in your life, so you're not ultimately sabotaging your financial success. They most certainly can help you when it comes to having more love in your life or greater health in your life. Right now, in light of what's going on with this virus, so to speak, which we've had viruses before, so it's not really new, but it is alarming to a lot of people, partly because, as always, whenever there's a virus around, clearly you can break it down into two groups of people, and then from there we can break it down even further. But there are two groups of people. The group that has a weaker immune system, a compromised immune system, they just become a lot more susceptible to whatever that virus is. Those who have a stronger immune system, for real now, and I get that there's some people that think they have a strong immune system, but then when push comes to shove, they realize that their immune system wasn't as strong as they thought it was. It's maybe on the weaker side, but the truth is, when we have a stronger immune system, then it at least increases the odds dramatically to ward off things like viruses and infections and unwanted energies, so to speak. Well, how does that relate to habits? Well, uniquely enough, when somebody has a healthy immune system, when somebody has a strong immune system, you can be assured that they also have a set of healthy habits that they have created or developed, usually over a period of time, because this kind of stuff is not easy to do, as I say in the book. It does take time, and as you said, it does require discipline. Actually, it requires a lot of discipline, which everybody has, as in a discipline muscle within inside themselves. Just again, with most people, their discipline muscle is atrophied. So it's important to recognize that we all have a discipline muscle, even if it's atrophied, which means once we become aware that muscle exists within us, we can start doing the things, just like once you become aware that you have a bicep that perhaps is atrophied, once you become aware that you really do have a bicep and it can be re-energized, it can be re-strengthened, all those types of things, the same thing with the discipline muscle. You're also going to need some consciousness. You're going to need some awareness around what it is that you're consciously choosing to do in terms of those new habits. And when I say new habits, at least in my world, and I've helped a lot of people with this sort of thing, and also, like I say in the book, take on one habit at a time. Do not take on 5 new habits at a time. That's usually a recipe for it doesn't work. you'll end up wasting a lot of time. Because when you understand what's involved just to create one new habit, then you'll no longer be tempted or tricked by your ego to try to create 3 new habits at the exact same time. There's a whole process involved, and that process is just that. It's a process. It takes time. But once you get that new habit in place, then from that point on, that new habit contributes to the running of your life, or to the influencing of your life. In this case, if it really is a new habit, obviously a positive habit, then that habit's going to serve you in the best of ways. And uniquely enough, it's the positive habits, it's the constructive habits, it's the unlimiting habits that we develop that actually affect the strengthening of our immune system. By the same token, if we're running around with a bunch of, I'll just say, negative habits, or, habits can also turn into addictions. We probably all know of at least somebody in our world that's addicted to something. Addicted maybe to alcohol or negativity or too much television, or you get the idea. And when you're addicted, what that is, that's a couple of different habits that have morphed into one that's turned into a controlling force over that person's life. It's turned into a controlling force over their free will. In other words, they really are being ran and possibly even being ruined by that set of habits that's turned into an addictive behavior. So if that's going on, then clearly that individual over time, not right away, but if they don't get a handle on that, that type of habit formation that might have gone all the way through to an addictive behavior in terms of its creation, that's now affecting the immune system in, shall we say, not the best of ways. And so this is why this is such an important subject for anybody to tap into, and then more importantly, to really, if you haven't already learned how to do this, then really learn how to do this and take advantage of the chart that you've created, the Limitless chart, because that was an awesome piece of work that you did, Justin, because that can serve as a tool to support someone in this regard.
Absolutely. And that's really what this is, guys. It's like Dale just said, this is a tool to track your success and to form the new habits, the new ritual with consistency, because obviously it takes time to build these new habits. But also, I like what Dale just said, to form positive habits, unlimiting habits, to strengthen our immune system and actually see change. You don't want to overload yourself. And that's why, these 18 things to do every day. When I first started, just pick one or two that you're going to do every morning, start implementing those. So you don't, go too far in. But that's what this whole thing is about, is building habits, positive habits, and structure and tracking it. And this is the guide. This is the guide for you to do that. So Dale, a couple tips on how to implement routines, if you could, for a couple advice on that.
Yeah, so routines also play into the idea of habits, or patterning is another word that I'll often use when I'm teaching this. It's really all the same. So if I have a set of limiting habits, I'm going to have what's known as some really weak routines. If I have a set of healthier habits, more positive-oriented habits, then I'm naturally going to have a set of healthy routines or positive routines. So a routine is something that we do almost like as a ritual. So once a routine becomes what I would refer to as like a part of our lifestyle. So a routine, for example, could be like having breakfast every morning. The routine is there's a little bit of a ritual. And, I know of people, including myself, I enjoy my breakfast meal. I enjoy my breakfast meal partly because, the breakfast kind of the name breakfast gives itself away. I'm breaking a fast. I'm breaking a fast that I've been on for, in my case, at least 12 hours. So another one of my routines is, I only eat to a certain time at the end of the day, and I'll only start eating at a certain time at the beginning part of the day. And I'll make sure that I have a lot of hours, so to speak, in between those 2 points, because, I've developed over time a real healthy, conscious relationship with my body. And so I've developed routines around helping my body to be, quite frankly, really healthy. And my body is very healthy. But, this just didn't happen to me by accident, because if you really know my story from back in the first 30 years of this life, you can see that clearly I was going down a real destructive path in my life, having been hospitalized many times, having been in ICU a number of times, having had a couple near-death experiences, just because my body was failing. This was all in my teens and my 20s and into my early 30s. And so, but I learned over time, it was either that or I was probably going to die, quite frankly, like physically die. I learned over time these secrets, if you will, these secrets to being more youthful, these secrets to becoming healthier, these secrets to the habits we just talked about, these secrets to developing routines on a more conscious level, recognizing that the routine always stems out of the habit or the patterning that goes on with us subconsciously, as I mentioned earlier on. And so coming back to the example of the breakfast meal, so it's something that I look forward to, and it's a ritual, and that's what a routine ultimately, when it's really serving, or once it's become a lifestyle at the highest of levels, at that place, what's happening now is it's something you really look forward to doing. So, for example, you might have a routine of meditating at a certain time of the day, or you might have a routine of something you do before you go to bed at night, or you might have a routine that you do around your breakfast meal in the morning, like I'm just suggesting, and on and on and on. Whatever the routine or the routines are, they're the type of routines that you actually look forward to doing. Another way of saying the same thing, you no longer resist the routines. If your routines are more negative in their orientation, if they're more limiting in their orientation, if they're designed to more hold you back and have your life kind of maybe from time to time go down a downward spiral, then obviously you're not looking forward to your routines. You're probably not even aware what the routines are. You've probably gone somewhat unconscious to what the routines are, like most people have gone unconscious towards what their habits are or what their patterns are. But as you're becoming more conscious, as you're becoming more aware, as you're really doing some good quality inner work, and you've been pointed in the right direction by your teacher or by whatever program that you're currently immersing yourself in, what's now happening, you're identifying these things. And as you identify them, then this is where you make the conscious choice. I want to start living my life this way. And then you got to move that into more of a lifestyle, to where you get it to the point, again, coming back to the example of breakfast, where you're no longer even thinking about breakfast. Yet you're looking forward to when your time of the day or the time of the morning is to have your breakfast meal, but you're no longer thinking about it because it's a routine. It's a significant part of your lifestyle. And as you're coming to that routine, it's something that kind of lights you up like a Christmas tree. You look forward to it. Or as you're coming to, maybe you've got a morning routine where, I remember years ago when I was a young man, one of the things I used to do is I used to read, and I used to teach this as well because I've been teaching for a long time now. And when I was a young man, I was teaching then, and one of the things I would teach is this routine of morning reading. I called it spiritual food. And I kept it really, and by the way, all my routines are very simple, even to this very day, all these years later, right? But I taught the routine, very simple, even back then. This is back in my early 20s, and I called it 20 minutes of food, of like nutritious food. And it was 20 minutes of picking your favorite book. Then I gave a couple criteria to what to look for in terms of what would be a good type of book that could feed you in this way. But I was very clear, keep it to 20 minutes and do not go beyond. You go beyond, and then it morphs into something else that you're probably not going to be thrilled about somewhere down the way. But if you keep it to that 20-minute rule, and those who followed this when I was teaching this way back when, and I mean, this was one of my routines every single morning for like probably 10 years. I don't do it anymore, partly because of I've since have been awoken to other abilities that I have. So not that I'll never read a book, but there's other things that happen for me in my routines that I get equally, or in some cases, quite frankly, even greater enrichment from. But back then, I wasn't that connected to this in the way that I am today, all these years later. And so doing something like that morning routine of purposely reading something that had a positive effect on me, something that was more inspirational, something that I was really interested in. I didn't have to struggle through. And, you know, as I used to teach it back then, I said, you know, you'll know it when you strike it, because when you're reading whatever you're reading, very seldom will you be able to get through in those 20 minutes 3 or 4 pages. Usually what will happen, you'll read 3 or 4 paragraphs and you'll just start to go into a contemplation. In other words, it'll take you inside of yourself, and something else that's really magical, quite frankly, starts to happen just by that 20-minute, in this case, say morning routine. Or I've had people say they prefer reading at night, like maybe an hour before they go to bed. They don't read for a whole hour. They just take a 20-minute segment, an hour leading up to their bed, and they found that to really be beneficial to them. So you've got to decide where you're going to plug this in, and meaning plug it into your day-to-day routine.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it's got to be something that works for you. And as you know, Justin, you've been around me now long enough. I'm not that kind of teacher that says, you know, this one size fits all. I've never been that way. And again, I've been around the block for a lot of times. I'm the type of teacher, like, I like the more customized approach, right? The more personalized approach. I like the more soulful approach. Like, what is it that works really well for Justin? And if I can help Justin uncover what that is, and I can help him to get in alignment with that, and that becomes a routine or a second part of his routine or a third addition to his routine, this is where the magic gets released, because it's unique to you as a soul, just like it would be unique to somebody else as a soul. And so that's another part of routines as well.
Okay, great. So something I've talked to a lot of people actually that are doing Limitless, and that's one question I get a lot is, you know, can you give me some tips on how to implement the routine? And I always tell people, set aside 20 to 30 minutes in the morning. If you have to wake up earlier, go ahead. Have a designated space or a ritual that you do when you wake up. So if you're going to make the coffee, go make your coffee. And the most important part of the first 20, 30 minutes, I do an hour to an hour and a half every morning, is digital detox. Do not touch your phone. You don't want to start going on Facebook and Instagram and watching the news and the, you know, coronavirus and all these things. This is really a time for you to get grounded, to slow down and to put positive things into your body, your mind, your soul, your energy, get grounded. So for example, what I do is I wake up, I pray, I give thanks, I burn Palo Santo. That's part of my ritual. And I don't touch my phone unless I'm putting on music. I put on positive music, like Dale said, put something positive into you. That's positive vibes in the morning. I listen to, you know, Deepak or, you know, whatever motivational leader, and try doing that. Do a digital detox where you don't touch your phone for the first 20, 30 minutes and pick a couple things on this list to do and make that a ritual. Turn that into your morning routine and then see how your day goes from there. And then Dale, you just kind of talked about the routine. What is something that we can do to get grounded? You know, some advice in the morning to help us get really grounded before we get into this day.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So it's important to recognize that the value in transitioning. So, for example, when you're in your nighttime sleep, that's a very different place to be than when you're in your waking reality. Those two places are literally two different worlds. And so what happens is when most people wake up, they wake up to an alarm clock and they get kind of jarred out of this possible deep sleep that they're in. And then their feet hit the deck, they throw some water in their face, and they're on the go. And, you know, another principle that I teach just on a regular basis is to recognize, again, the significance or the value of transitioning from one place to another place and minimize the abruptness. Minimize the abruptness. So what would that look like? If you really want to get better at implementing a routine, and more specifically, to get yourself well grounded at the start of the day, then this is what it would look like. So you recognize that you're asleep, and possibly you're in the dream space. That's a whole nother piece as well, right? And so to transition from your sleep space, or possibly a dream that you're in the middle of, while you're getting ready to awaken for the day, that it's always better to go slower rather than faster. If you're that type of person that always likes to go fast, then you're more than likely not transitioning well from one place to another, from one dimension to another dimension. When you're in your sleep state, there's a chance you're in the dream space. If you're in the dream space, that's a different dimension than this waking dimension. And if you jump the gun and go abrupt from that place to this place, not that it's bad and not that we're a bad person for doing it. That's usually an uneducated person. That's somebody who really doesn't understand this just yet. And in all fairness to them, possibly because they've never been taught. They've never been educated properly on this. And so this is where it begins. If you're going to get grounded at the beginning part of your day, it's important that you understand this piece so that when you're coming out of that sleep state, or possibly even dream state, as you're coming out, you want to come out slowly. You want to come out gracefully. And just that one little piece I'm giving you right now, if you've mastered that, that in itself is loaded with golden nuggets for you. I promise you. Now, if you take it a little step further and you purposely choose to allow a certain amount of time for this transition period from your sleep state to your now I'm ready for the day kind of thing. And let's say that's an hour worth. And by the way, if you've never done this before, then you want to start with 20 minutes. You don't want to go from nothing to an hour. That's ridiculous. That's the kind of stuff that's a recipe for failure. It just never, ever works. Or let me rephrase. If it works, that means you're in the presence of somebody who's already well disciplined. And then even then, that person's going to have some challenges because it's a little too much too fast. Because remember, as you're learning how to do this, it's like creating a new habit or a new pattern. All of that's got to run through your nervous system. And that's why none of this stuff can be created overnight. I know there's other people out there that maybe say, Ken, I've never subscribed to that. I don't subscribe to it, and I clearly don't teach that because I have been in front of hundreds and thousands of people over the years. I've helped a lot of people, and I've never seen anybody be able to pull that off in that way, including myself. But what I have seen is those who do pull it off in the most successful of ways and where it becomes sustainable. And of course, using my own personal life as a laboratory, if you will, over the decades to prove that this really does work. And so this transition, this is where the grounding really comes into effect. So you've got to decide, first of all, you got to take a look at where are you at in the morning? Do you even transition? Or are you one of those people that still does it abruptly? Or do you drag yourself out of bed and drag yourself to the next step and drag yourself to the next step after that? That's not even good transitioning either. What that is, that's not even leaving that other state yet. And so, again, when I said good transitioning means you do it gracefully, you do it smoothly, you do it in a way that actually really empowers you. Again, it becomes another routine that you look forward to. And sometimes you look forward to it before you even go to bed that night, because at some point, you're going to wake up and then you're going to step into this transition that's going to be a little smoother and a little more graceful as you're entering into your waking day. So if you've never done this before, then at the most you want to start with 20 minutes. And you want to decide today that tomorrow morning you're going to give yourself 20 minutes to make this transition. And in this 20 minutes, you're going to do a couple of things. As you wake up, you're going to give yourself permission to wake up gently. Gently. Now, if you still need to use an alarm clock, then most certainly do that. For those of you that don't need an alarm clock, in other words, you can set your subconscious for a certain time in the morning that you want to wake up, and your subconscious listens to you, and it wakes you up at that exact precise time the following morning. But when you're awoken, you're going to purposely lay in bed for a few minutes, and you're going to keep your eyes closed. How about that? And you're just going to let whatever comes up for you from the inside up into your brain consciousness without opening up your eyes. You're just going to lay there. You're going to let yourself just kind of, because again, you're just starting to make the transition from that sleep state into your waking state. And for those of you that are really skilled in your dreams, then all of this all comes on the heels of what you know to be the twilight zone. And so, and if that's the case and you're aware of that, then you want to allow for that in your transition too. If you're not aware of that, it's okay. You can just get started like the way that I'm now suggesting. And so just 5 minutes or so, you're laying in bed with your eyes closed. Then maybe the next 5 minutes, just start to move your body around a little bit in the bed, right? Stretch your body, and then not extreme stretching, right? Because remember, this is all about transition, graceful transition. So you're going for a soft stretch. You're just stretching. Maybe you move the left side of your body more over to the right, and then you move the right side of your body a little bit more towards the left, and you just kind of stretch yourself gently. And then just for a couple minutes, and then roll out of bed. As you roll out of bed, then you're going to go about doing whatever you do, whether you throw some water in your face, grab yourself a glass of room temperature water, hopefully not cold water. Cold water is never a good idea first thing in the morning for the obvious reason. It's going to shock your system. There's no grace in that whatsoever. And I only bring that up because I've had people in my seminars who sometimes will say to me, I have a glass of ice water first thing in the morning. Not a good idea. Just not a good idea, at least when you are choosing to want to have more of that graceful transition in the morning during that 20-minute period. And then from there, you go to whatever your next is. And if your next is, you throw on your robe and you go sit on your favorite chair. I think I heard one of the gals at the opening here say she's got her favorite chair and she's overlooking the lake area. I mean, I got the visual right away as I was hearing her talk, right? Maybe that's the chair that she wakes up or that she transitions into from her bed into that chair. And she just kind of takes in the sights. And then maybe you go grab, or you've already chosen this in advance, what your book is going to be that maybe you're going to read for 15 or 20 minutes, and just let yourself have an experience. Or maybe you're not going to read at all. Maybe you're just going to go sit and be in quiet for those 20 minutes. So you've got your glass of room temperature water, or ideally even warmer water. It doesn't have to be hot, but warmer water. It's more soothing to the body, helps wake up the body naturally and gracefully. And so just for those 20 minutes, you're just maybe going to sit there in silence if you're comfortable with that. Or you could maybe journal for 20 minutes. Whatever it is, something that's gentle, something that's nurturing, just for that 20-minute period. And then when you come out on the other side of the 20 minutes, and again, if you've never done this before, keep it to 20 minutes for at least 30 days. And more importantly, like I say in my book when I talk about practices, 30 consecutive days. If you want to really turn this into a routine, you need at least, sometimes more than 30, but at least 30 consecutive days. And again, that's why you also want to keep it simple. I'm really big on simplicity, or otherwise it becomes complex. And once it becomes complex, now it becomes a heavy burden, so to speak. So you want to keep it simpler. Keep it simpler, it becomes easier, and ultimately a lot more effective and productive. So, and then once you get your 20 minutes down every day for say 30 consecutive days, then should you be inspired to, should you feel it's time to, you can expand your 20-minute morning transitional time to maybe 30 minutes or maybe even 40 minutes. And then if at some point you can possibly expand it to 60 minutes. And then once you get it to 60 minutes, that's usually a good marker, just on average, is a 60-minute transitional period in the morning. And then, of course, there are some people that even take it beyond that. and then they choose to get up even earlier just because this becomes such an enjoyable way to enter the day. But the biggest benefit, Justin, is this in itself will help to ground you at the start of every single day.
Absolutely. I've been doing Limitless for over a year and a half now and tracking my results. And what Dale just said, you know, waking up and being gentle with yourself, giving yourself the time to ultimately slow down is the key. So wake up, just start with 20 minutes, and then you can elevate to, 30 minutes. I think the practice is if you can give yourself 30 minutes to an hour every morning where you don't touch your phone, it's a digital detox. You slow down, you don't jump out of bed. You give yourself the time. You give yourself self-love, self-time. Stretch a little bit in bed. You can call it yoga. You can call it stretching. Don't start off your morning with a tempo of being rushed and in a hurry. It's so important to give yourself time in the morning to get grounded. And what Dale just said is great. If you're new to Limitless, give yourself 20 minutes. Just try 20 minutes. And like he said, consecutively. That is the key to success. One of my favorite books is called The Slight Edge with Jeff Olson. The Slight Edge is an amazing book where he talks about doing a little bit over a long period of time equals success. And that's really what this is, guys, this Limitless chart. If you only do 4 things in a day, you don't do 18, that's fine. Write down what you did and didn't do. This is a tracking system. There is no perfection. There is no right or wrong. This is simply just to track what you did and didn't do and look at it at the end of 2 weeks. So you have your dates at the top, the end of 2 weeks, you're going to look at this chart and be like, wow, I really did this and this more. And I've really noticed in the mornings, I'm not much of a journaler or a meditator. And I downloaded an app called Headspace and I love it. And I do 10, 15 minutes guided meditation every morning. Then I write in my gratitude journal what I'm grateful for, my normal journal, and then I read my book. And that's part of my ritual. While I make my coffee in the morning, I call this stacking. I listen to positive audio while I'm making my coffee, and then I am affirmations, and I sit down in the same place and meditate. Then I do these, my journal, gratitude, and my book, and then I do my yoga, my stretch, and my pray. So I knock out 7 things as part of my ritual right when I wake up for 30 minutes, and it takes a little while to turn that into, an actual routine, doing it every morning. So Dale just covered 3 main things: why habits rule us, tips and how to implement routines, and grounding advice. Before we go on to the next 2 questions, does anyone have any questions for Dale regarding the habits or implementing routines or getting grounding advice or morning? Nope. Okay. Cool. So last 2 questions for you, Dale. Tips on connecting with our higher self.
Yeah, well, obviously the first tip, and I know this might sound real basic to most that are on the call here with us today, is to recognize your own higher self, to recognize that you have a higher part of you that more than likely knows you better than you currently know it. Now, ideally, you want to move the needle forward on that, and you want to become so acquainted with your higher self that you know your higher self to the same degree that it currently knows you. That in itself is usually a massive process for somebody to undertake. And again, there's no quick fix here. At least I haven't discovered one just yet. And but anybody can accomplish this. Anybody can get to that place where you will know your higher self as well as your higher self knows you. And that's obviously really significant for those who are interested in possibly embodying, at the very least, parts of their higher self. So that's one of the foundational pillars in order to be able to achieve that for those that are really inspired to move in that direction too. So connecting with the higher self is beyond the recognition. You've got to create some time, either in your day to where this becomes a habit, to where this becomes a lifestyle, to where you dialogue with your higher self. So Justin, you know, one of the healing systems that I've created, known as the Transcovery process now. It's been around for the better part of 10 years. Many people use this process daily because it just doesn't only help you to process out material that's coming up from your subconscious to be ultimately healed and then released or resolved. But in addition to that, it's a process that helps you to do exactly what you're asking me about right now, which is to connect with your higher self. And so one of the things that this process does, and I'm going to highlight it right now, is to be able to go into an open dialogue with your higher self. Now, if you haven't turned this into a lifestyle just yet, or a habit or a routine just yet, then this is going to take a little while to kind of get used to this. But it starts off by just taking, quite frankly, even if you just put a note up on your refrigerator door, and once a day, and you pick a time in the day, could be like, say, 9 o'clock in the morning, and you're going to spend 3 minutes at 9 o'clock in the morning dialoguing with your higher self. And so, and how you would start that, for those of you that are, you know, this is completely new to you in that regard, you would start off by asking, first and foremost, if your higher self is with you right now. Now, I know that sounds like a basic question, but it turns out it's not as basic as sometimes people think right off the get-go. It's actually really profound, because your higher self in itself is always with you. The challenge has been, it's not coming from the higher self, it comes from us. We have this thing going on with us that we disconnect from our higher self. Another way of saying the same thing, we pretend, maybe not all day long, but different moments throughout the day, we pretend like we don't even have one of these. And what's even more interesting, this is for that group of people who know that they do have a higher self. And yet, if you were to follow them around, you will see how they slip in and out of what I'm talking about right now. In this moment, they're remembering they have a higher self, and therefore they might actually be reaching out to their higher self. In the next moment, based on what's going on in their external world, they are acting like their higher self doesn't even exist. Again, it's an amazing phenomena. And it's been going on for a long time. And so in this idea of connecting with your higher self, again, you got to break it down to the ridiculous and break it down into a real practical step, because obviously this is something that's profoundly spiritual. But if it's not broken down into a practical step, then it'll probably just stay up in the ether somewhere, where that person will be able to intellectualize they have a higher self. They'll be able to conceptualize they have a higher self, but for the most part, they'll never get to experience their higher self in physical form. And I got to tell you, talk about a different world. It's a very different world to actually experience your higher self in your physical body than it is to intellectualize your higher self in your mental body. Those are two different dimensions. They're two different worlds. And so, but to connect means then to bring in this practice where you're on purpose and with consciousness, you're going to connect with your higher self. And again, I know it sounds like a real simple, basic practice, but you pick a time of the day. So going back to 9 o'clock in the morning, you're going to do this for 3 minutes. And the whole intent for those 3 minutes is to dialogue with your higher self, starting with that question, higher self, higher self, higher self. Are you with me here today? Are you with me right now? Now, what's really awesome here, as Justin will tell you, because he's been around me now for a little while, many years ago when I started teaching, the subject I was so fascinated by and couldn't get enough of was universal law. I spent 10 years of my professional life studying universal law. Well, in those 10 years, I began to master it in my own life. And in the next 10 years, meaning 20 years out now, later at that point in time, I had mastered universal law. And what that means is I had brought the universal law, the network of universal laws, into my physical body. And anybody that knew me back then and knows me today They know I'm a walking embodiment of universal law. And so in this case, there's a law that says that when you ask anything of the spiritual realm, it must, by law, answer you. So again, I know that question I gave you sounded like it was kind of elementary, kind of real basic, right? And then I said, but it turns out it's really profound. Because if you get into this habit of doing this every single day, you must get an answer. You must. See, now, and I know you know this. You know you have a higher self, and you know your higher self's with you all the time. It's just sometimes you don't act that way. Sometimes you're in this pretend mode like it doesn't exist all of a sudden. And how do we know that? All we got to do is take a look at the way you're acting or the type of results that you're manifesting in your life. And so this too is a process. It takes time to master. You've got to be, shall we say, diligent, and you've got to be, conscious of this. And then over time, you will master this, where this will just become a lifestyle. Now, what's really cool about this, from that point, once your higher self answers back to you and says, yes, I'm right here. Sometimes your higher self might even say, I'm standing right behind you, or I'm just above you. It might even freak you out a little bit. Because remember, you're doing this, I'm suggesting, in the morning when you're a little fresher, when you've gone through, again, that graceful transition, so you're a little more relaxed, you're a little more receptive, all these cool things. I mean, it's the perfect setup, right, to be able to connect with your higher self and then have your higher self connect with you. And then lastly, I'll say beyond that, once you pose that question, you will get an answer because that's governed by universal law. And once that happens, then you can ask another question, whatever that question is. And by law, your higher self will answer it. All you got to do is, quite frankly, take the time to ask the question, be receptive, and then just listen. Just let whatever comes to you on a telepathic level, because that's the communication vehicle that your higher self's going to use. So all of a sudden, something's just going to pop into your brain or something's going to pop into your body. Trust that, because more than likely, that's your higher self literally speaking to you. Now, as this happens more and more, this idea that I just gave you, this strategy that I just gave you, this is the type of stuff that clearly will help you to not just connect with your higher self, but I promise you, this will help you to get even better at not just connecting with your higher self, but over time, you'll be able to sustain that connection with your higher self all the time. And at that point, that's when your life, the magic that starts to get released in and from you in your day-to-day life is, quite frankly, it's amazing, just absolutely amazing. And this is available to anybody and everybody because everybody at their core has a higher self. Everybody has one of these, whether they believe in it or not. Everybody has one.
Absolutely. Thanks for that advice on how to connect with your higher self. There's so much to talk about, but we are limiting this call to 1 hour. So we kind of went over the basics, guys. Why habits rule us, tips on how to implement routines, grounding advice, and how to connect with our higher self. Thank you, Dale, so much for that information. Just so you guys know, I've been to several Dale seminars in Las Vegas, 2-3 day seminars. He now does telecasts because of the coronavirus situation that we're in. I'll send you guys the information along with his book. You can check out dalehalaway.com and kind of learn more about Dale. We're going to have him back as a guest speaker on our Limitless calls each week. This is our second call ever, so just kind of formatting this. But the whole goal of this is, I developed the Limitless chart because I found this was helping me in my life gain a strategy. Instead of just waking up and doing whatever and rushing into the day, this got me grounded. I developed this over the past 2 years. I was living in Bali in the middle of the jungle by myself, and I realized I was doing these things. And you have to realize by doing these things, It's not just like, okay, I'm waking up early, I'm meditating, I'm reading, I'm getting good sleep, vitamins, all these things that you're doing, journaling, reading, writing, getting grounded, all these things, it's not like you're not going to see something come out of this. And that's what we'll go over in the next call, which I call flow state. This literally, as far as I'm concerned, will put you into flow state. If you do not know what flow state is when you think of something, is my definition of it. When you think of something, let's say your mom or whoever, and they call you right away because you're putting that photonic energy out into the ether and you're connected. We all have these connectors, these antennas. So by doing these things and putting these good things in your body and tracking it, waking up early, giving yourself the time to get grounded, putting motivational audio, motivational positive things into your mind, body, and soul, you're going to see that you're going to enter what I call flow state. For me, if I get 16 to 18 every day, by day 4 or 5, I notice I'm entering flow state. I'm vibrating. I'm waking up earlier without an alarm clock. I'm happy. I love doing my routine in the morning. I'll think of someone, they'll show up. For example, I did 10 days of 18 every day last week. And literally I was in the kitchen weighing something or trying to weigh something. I'm like, man, I wish I had a scale right now. I need to know exactly how much this is. And a knock on the door and Amazon drops off a package and it's from my roommate. He opens it and it's a scale. I'm like, is that a scale for weighing that? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, can I use that real quick? Like I literally just said, I need a scale for this. So that is like an example of what flow state is. It's going to let you master your mornings, design the life you really want to live. So it's really important to do that. And what Dale just said, take it easy. If you're new to this, it's like a practice, like anything. Do 20, 30 minutes in the morning, and just start with, I suggest 7 tips. So for me, the top 7 that I do, which can be done in 20 minutes, the first 5 minutes is wake up early, do a little stretch, which could be considered yoga. Give thanks, which could be prayer, just saying thank you. Drink water, take your vitamins, meditate, and then read or journal. That's 7 right there, which you can do in 20 minutes when you wake up. So kind of customize this. I have numbers next to mine, so I know what I do as soon as I wake up, and now it's kind of memory, and I play with it. Sometimes I do yoga in my room. Sometimes I do it downstairs. Play with an evening ritual. Sometimes I like to do stuff at night. Last night was a beautiful full moon. I did my meditation at night and did it a little bit different. And we'll get into this with the next call with Dale, the evening ritual. How are you sleeping? Are you getting to REM and theta? About your dreams. Dale is very diverse in all of this. So yeah, I'm just going to go through each person real quick and you can say hi. I'll unmute you and just real quick, say one of your favorite rituals that you like doing in the morning. We'll start with Rika. What's one of your favorite you like to do when you wake up?
Well, I was talking about it a little bit earlier, is I love to sit in the corner, like right looking up, because like I said, I have a 180-degree view of the lake and it's the comfiest chair, and I sit and I read and then I journal and just sit quietly, and it gets my day going.
Okay, so a little solitude time.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Okay, thanks for sharing. Robert, what's something you like to do in the morning as soon as you wake up?
Well, I was, you know this a little bit about me. I was autistic and I had a brain injury. So I've had to learn in my life to manage my brain, manage my energy, if you will. And meditation has always been helpful to me. So I have a routine policy, if you will. It's called start my day right, end my day right. So at every day, at the end of every day, it has to end in peace, quiet, restfulness, let go of the day. Maybe that's listening some music on the biomat, some aural beats or something, whatever it takes. And then when I get up in the morning, I don't make myself get out of bed. I don't force myself to wake up, I guess. I generally do wake up plenty early. And I get up and I have my little routine in the morning. But for me, the evening is more important than the morning, because I feel like I'm always in a meditative state before I go to sleep, and I kind of make a postulate for the next day, and then I wake up the next day kind of ready to go.
Okay, awesome. It's so cool to hear how everyone has a little different routine. I'm going to call on Jackie. Something you like to do in the morning when you wake up?
I do. I have a routine, and basically, as soon as I wake up, I say, "Alexa, off," because that's my alarm. And before I even open my eyes, I make sure I smile in bed, and I lay there smiling for a moment, and then I take a couple of diaphragmatic breaths. I'm very into breathing. I that's my go-to. Breath is medicine. So I take a couple of breaths, and then when I get up, the first thing I do as I'm physically out of bed is a couple of stretching, chest openers, heart openers. Then I make my bed because I've already accomplished something. Once that bed's made, there's an accomplishment, and it gets my body and soul at rest. And then I have a couple of other routines, but that's my beginning of my day. When I don't do that, I notice it. There are a couple times that I'm running to a meeting and the bed's not made, and I'll think, oh, I'm not going to make it. I'm fine. But it throws me off. So.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. That's something really important, guys, is about routine, and the consistency is it's grounding to make your bed every morning, you know, and like you said, it kind of throws you off if you don't. And having these rituals that we do, there's definitely a lot to it. Brielle, what is something you like doing when you wake up?
Hi. So I've been doing I wrote in one of mine, which is the digital morning detox. So that's actually something new for me because I've always been like somebody who like immediately grabs my cell phone first thing in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually been a little bit of a challenge for me getting into the habit of not grabbing my phone first thing and actually going and just doing anything else, right? So whether and what I've kind of been right now, I've been kind of working on getting into a routine and haven't really had a solid routine. So I've actually been testing out different things as that are on the list as like what I'm doing first thing in the morning. So one thing that I've tested and that I like doing is I like journaling in the morning, and I like giving gratitude. Another thing I've tried is like my first thing to do in the morning is like sound healing and motivation. So starting with like the 10-minute motivations. And I have to say, I'm still working on figuring out like what that thing is. That's like the thing I'm going to start every day. But it has been really healthy for me to just practice not grabbing my phone, and just getting out of that bad habit has been a really positive thing for me so far. So not quite the one size fits all answer, but I appreciate the inspiration that I'm having doing this limitless ritual, because it's helping me to kind of break some bad habits.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I think the most important part is waking up earlier, because why not? We all love to sleep. I don't know who doesn't like to sleep. It's so comfortable, but waking up earlier and starting with a place of gratitude. Like when I wake up and I have my ritual. I burn my Palo Santo on my porch. I say, thank you for another gift. We don't know how we got here. Thank you. And then I put on some meditation music and then motivational audio. And then I get into my meditation and my ritual. And for me, I love doing that instead of jumping on my emails or, you know, jumping on a phone call. There's no way I could do that ever again. I used to. So we'll call on two more people here. Cody, you're on the call. What's something you enjoy doing when you wake up as part of your ritual? Oh, hold on. Let me unmute.
Here, I got you. We're good. So, you know, honestly, one of my favorite things is actually just waking up when I naturally wake up instead of going back to sleep. And I've been also experimenting with turning my phone off the night prior, to where I don't wake up with an alarm, and I don't really know when I'm going to wake up either. So I just kind of like allow myself this natural thing that I'm experimenting with, and just allow myself to wake up naturally when I wake up. As long as I make sure I get myself to bed on a certain time, I kind of have faith that I'm going to wake up at the time that I need to wake up at. So that's like the first thing. And then what I've been focusing on is writing down my dreams. So I'll lay there at night, or I'll lay there when I wake up with my eyes closed. I'll keep my eyes closed. I can tell when I wake up. And then I'll go through my dream space. I'll go through my dream and like basically just go through the entire dream again with my eyes closed, and then I'll record the dream onto paper. I'll come out, I'll go do my little sit meditation with my transcovery process that I learned from Dale. And then after that, something new that I've just been doing that I really appreciate is I've been, you know how on Facebook they have on this day? I've been doing that in my journals. So I've been going back, like, what did I write a week ago today? What did I write back a month ago today? And it's so powerful, the discoveries that I'm learning and how much I'm learning about myself. So I'd say that's probably like the favorite thing that I'm just now tapping into.
Okay, that's really cool. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, it's interesting, and that's something I love about journaling, guys. Is I started this journal that I have in 2017, March 1st, and I love going back and just reading where I was a couple of years ago. I'm like, oh my God, I've grown so much. You know, it's really good for tracking, and that's really what the guide is. Real quick, John Allen, you're on the call. Can you tell us something you enjoy doing right when you wake up?
Hey, what's up, guys? How's everybody? Honestly, the first thing I like to do is just kind of get connected to my higher self. I just thank God and thank the universe for just letting me wake up. Really, just have another chance to have an awesome day. And then the next thing I like to do is turn on some music really loud, and then I grab my dog and kind of dance around with her for a little bit, just kind of get my body moving. And then right away after that, I'll do the normal stuff, you go to the bathroom, do that, and then I'll go right after that. I'm putting on motivational CDs, and I mean, I just have this 1-2 step. So I've kind of like developed this little system of like, right when I wake up, I do this. The next thing I do is I do this. The next thing I do, and I really have just, I think, like Bree was saying, is just trying to figure out what works for you, and at what times it works for you. In the morning, at the very first thing, I don't want to start writing and journaling. I want to get up. I want to scream. I want to say, what's up? Like, I'm excited. Start moving, start getting that energy flowing, start feeling like I'm alive. And then get the music on, and then start just enjoying get that vibration super high so I can enjoy my day in the morning. And then I think that's the best thing that I do for myself, is I really just get that super high vibration in the morning where I honestly just feel like, dude, I'm freaking alive. And then at that point, I do my first vegan meal, and I turn on my motivation while I'm making all my meals, my motivational CDs and different things, and kind of combined a couple things into my routine. I'm doing one, and then I'm doing another thing at the same time, and then I just kind of pattern, and then get to the gym in the morning. So by the time I'm done, I think I probably have done about 12 things on my list by the time 6 o'clock in the morning comes, because I think the first and strongest habit that I had to create was probably the hardest habit, to be honest with you, was waking up at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
It was probably the hardest habit that I ever created. And then it was the easiest habit that I ever created, because eventually I adapted to it. Now I don't even need an alarm clock. It just, your body just naturally wakes up. But it took a minute to get to that level.
That's the most important one, I think, is waking up early and then giving yourself the time to do these things. Like John just said, is waking up early was the hardest, and it became the easiest. And you all know it takes 21 days to form a habit. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the call. You got something out of this. Dale Halaway, you can go to dalehalaway.com. We're going to have him on hopefully every week and dive into more. He also has a telecast that he does. You can check out his book, Being Called to Change. There's several people on this call that have been to his seminars. There's actually, I think, 4 of us on this call. So we're really lucky to have him. And just remember, you're not alone. Use this as a guide. We have the Facebook community page if you guys want to reach out, say anything. And this is really a network of people that want self-growth and want to become the best possible version of themselves. And I think all of us on this call are beautiful souls. So just know that, you need something that you can track yourself with. You need a guide, if you will. And this has helped me and other people. And that's kind of why we did it. You can check out dalehalaway.com/telecast. It's in the chat box. And that's pretty much it. So if you guys want to share this with anyone like this, I've been giving out this sheet started on a napkin. I've been giving this out to friends and this and that. And then people are like, why don't we do a call together? The first call was last week. This is the second call. We're like, let's have a guest speaker. So why not? Let's create stuff. That's why we're here, right? Yeah, we got time. So anyways, thanks everyone for joining. Dale, anything you want to say as we sign off? I think I have you muted. Yeah, it looks like he just dropped off. But yeah, if you guys want to check it out, go to dalehalaway.com/telecast. And if you're not on the Facebook group, you'll have, I think, my number or the email. You can reach out to me. So cool. Thanks for joining, guys. If you have any questions, you can ask them now or in the chat box.
Thanks so much for putting this together, Justin. It was awesome, brother.
Yeah.
Dale was awesome.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks,
Thank
brother.
you so much. It was
Thanks,
great.
Rika. Cody, thanks for joining.
Yeah, man, this was really cool. I'm glad you did this. It really inspires me to get my own thing going and get a group of people going with some stuff, you know. So
Do it.
thank you, Spo.
Yeah, people want to hang out and talk. This is like my 4th Zoom call ever. You know, people want to. I had
Yep.
30 something people on the meditation last night you're on. People want to connect, you know. So if you can help people, I know you're, you know, learning from Dale Halaway and becoming a master trainer underneath him. You could easily be doing these Zoom calls, giving this information out to people. But it's cool to see that people, you know, we want to connect. We all took time out of an hour of our day today, and everyone on here, like, there's several business owners on here. You know, John to Robert. You know, we all do something in the external world to show up. But at the end of the day, we're all a human. You know, we're all a human being that wakes up and has to tackle and show up in every day the same together. So for me, this has really, really helped me in my mornings and showing up better outside and with other people. And obviously there's so much going in the world right now. And I was telling Dell this, I was on a phone call with him earlier today. I'm like, everyone's scared. We're all little children that grew up, and everyone's scared right now. We're being quarantined at home. We don't know if businesses are going to be back open. Like, there's so much going on. Why not communicate with each other? Let's talk to each other. How can I help you? What do you need? You know, there's certain people that aren't strong that need our help. Make sure you guys reach out to, I call my mom and my parents and my brother every other day. My uncle I haven't talked to in a while. I go on Facebook and chat with people. How are you doing? Just connect with people. You know, that's why we're here. And I feel like that's why we've been forced to slow down, is so we can turn inward, do our own personal work, which is, these are some of the steps, and then connect with others, you know? So yeah, just know that you can do this too. I'm just one guy on a laptop right now.
So
So, all right, guys. Well, I hope you all have a great day. We do this every Wednesday at 3. I have your emails, and we're building a community, an actual, like, on Facebook, we have a community right now of 30 people. I'm actually going to build an actual app and community where we can network with each other. Eventually, we'll have events where we can get in person, maybe next year. And then we're going to be going over, like, nutrition tips. Like, I'm taking a lot of stuff from Jeunesse right now, stuff I normally don't take, to put in my body. So yeah, this is going to turn into a health and wealth podcast, and really talking about putting good, positive vibrations into our mind, body, and soul.
Awesome.
That's the idea.
Way to go,
So,
dude.
all right, guys. Well, have a good day. Thanks for joining.
thanks, Justin.
All right. Bye.